I want to welcome everybody to a presentation by Professor Art Seto on international escapades of a book lover. Introducing Professor Art Seto. We have a nice crowd today. Over 30 people have signed up, and most people, I think, are actually in attendance. We'll have a Q&A after Art's presentation, so you may put your questions that you may have during the presentation into chat, or wait and ask them in the Q&A after. Art has a lot of slides he wants to go through, so we're going to hold on to our seats. Art is an assistant professor of graphic design at the Creative School at Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly Ryerson University. Art's work in the graphic arts and book design has taken him around the world. He will share highlights of his experiences with us in his talk entitled International Escapades of a Book Lover. So with that, here's Art.
Okay, well, thank you to the book club of Washington for inviting me to speak. I'm going to be presenting through the eyes of an academic. So I'm very fortunate. I teach at a program. I teach a course called The Art of the Book. I teach a letterpress course, and I teach the bookbinding course. So these are my core courses. So I'm going to start the presentation, and let me just see first of all that. Okay, I think you can see this, and my apologies. I'm actually at the cottage, and I didn't want you guys to see my cottage, so I have a green screen in the back. I present from my library, such as most of you guys are sitting in front of. I do have, as Gary said, I have a lot of slides. There's actually 199 slides in my slide deck.
Art, your speaker notes are showing on this.
I'm sorry. You're not hearing me. Okay, let's try again. Okay, not sure why. Not on mute.
No, we can hear you. It was showing the wrong screen.
Oh, the screen didn't see the screen. It
was showing your notes.
I'm showing my notes. It's not what I want to do. Okay, let me just stop that and start again. So. Okay, I think I have, let me see.
There you go.
Hang on, but that doesn't
Looks
give me
great,
my
Art.
notes. Sorry, I can't see my
That's
notes.
better.
But I need
Yeah.
to bring up my notes, and it doesn't show me my notes. So just give me a second here. I'll get it. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Do you see my notes? No.
No notes yet, but the next slide
good.
will tell us.
It looks fine, Art.
Super. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I got to cycle through quite a few slides here. Most of them will be very quick to go through. So I'm going to present sort of a around the world quick tour of some of the book venues out there. There are literally hundreds of great and wonderful venues, and I've just sort of cherry picked some of them. Okay, so let's get started. So the first one I'm going to do is the Gutenberg Museum. So in 2012, we took a whole bunch of students to Germany to the largest printing trade show in the world called Drupa in Dusseldorf, and then we took the students over to Mainz to the Gutenberg Museum. And so this is typically how I get to travel, is I am either traveling to go to a conference or I'm taking students somewhere around the world. So lucky me. So the Gutenberg Museum, one of the oldest, one of the largest printing museums in the world, has references to 4,000 years of, hand printing all the way up to Gutenberg and beyond. It's definitely probably the top comprehensive print museum in the world, and of course has the largest collection of Gutenberg Bibles. This shows a couple of the entrances. The one on the right also has an area for workshops, and I'll see that in a later slide. So founded in 1900, so over 100 years. Focuses not only on John Gutenberg and his life, but also on printing in general. Right next to the museum, close to the museum anyways, in the downtown square is a monument to Gutenberg and a statue, and this is located right next to the Mainz Cathedral, or sometimes called St. Martin's Cathedral. Of course, it's the Gutenberg Bible that we started this all off, and Gutenberg's adaptation of the screw-type wine press for printing and the invention of his movable lead alloy type that resulted in this 42-line Gutenberg Bible. This is a replica of the Gutenberg press. Nobody really knows exactly how it looks like. This probably looks pretty close to this. And so there are workshops done in the museum. While I was at the museum, unfortunately, they did not allow photography in the museum. So most of my images are sourced either from the websites of these institutions or just generally from Google. This is the workshop on the main floor close to the entrance. One of the areas of the museum displays. And one of the highlights of my visit to the Gutenberg Museum was the Chinese typesetting display. So instead of 26-letter alphabet that we use in English for typesetting, you need about 10,000 words, not alphabets, but words to typeset in Chinese. And this was the first time I've seen such a setup at the museum. This image is not from the museum because they wouldn't let me take a picture. This museum is actually from one of the last typesetting foundries in the world, located in Taiwan. This is the gift shop. Of course, I love gift shops for a few reasons. A couple of which is that it allows me to pick up teaching aids and also gifts for my teaching assistants and research assistants. Okay, so very quick look at the Gutenberg Museum. Now I'm going to go to Los Angeles, and we'll take a look at two real world-class, some of the largest museums in the world. The J. Paul Getty, he was an American-born British petroleum industrialist who founded the Getty Oil Company, and one time was considered the world's richest person. This museum is located originally located in Malibu in 1974. And I guess it outgrew itself, and then it took up this space up on the hillside in the Brentwood Pacific Palisades neighborhood near UCLA. And it opened in 1997 at a cost of $1.3 billion. This is high up on the hills overlooking the city, and it's not accessible by private car, only by bus, and they have their own tram. And I guess you could hike up as well. So in 1982, the museum became the richest museum in the world when it inherited $1.2 billion, and it's ranked in one of the top museums. So this is the original museum located in Malibu, which they now call the Villa. So I'm going to talk about this one. I'm going to talk about the newer museum. So this is an aerial view of the campus and some of the buildings that are there. So this is so the buildings are on 24 acres of 110 of the hillside property. Admission is free, which is super great. However, these days you need to research and need to book ahead for a timed scheduled visit. Some of the architecture of the museum in the next few slides. The Getty is compared to the Huntington, which I'm going to talk about next. It does have gardens and landscaping, and you might want to spend some time there, but it's not a botanical museum. So it's one of the Getty is one of the top art museums in the world. I'm just going to show you a few slides. Apologize for this this slide that came from the internet. And so museums these days, there's a fair bit of controversy, and the Getty has had a fair bit of it in terms of artifacts that were said to have been stolen or looted. And the Getty's been very good at returning artifacts that they've agreed that they should not be in their possession, and there's others in negotiation as well. Some of the other rooms. Okay, so we'll talk about the Getty Research Institute Library collections. So they have over 1 million books, periodicals, study photographs, auction catalogs, and extensive collection of rare and unique materials. So some of the collections that are of interest to me are sketchbooks and alchemy or science books as well, illuminated medieval manuscripts, and artist books and small press publications. A couple images of the illuminated manuscripts. In 1983, after economic downturn in what was West Germany, the Getty Museum acquired 144 illuminated medieval manuscripts from the financially struggling Ludwig collection. This is an image of the Book of the Dead, the Art of Alchemy. And I have an interest in books with pop-ups, especially these older science textbooks. So pop-ups include wheels and pull tabs and tunnel books and other paper engineering techniques. This is part of the area that I collect and the area that I practice in. I had a visiting scholar from China come during the right at the start of the pandemic, and then stayed through the first year of the pandemic. And we worked together to produce a 2-volume, very elaborate set of pop-up books. So this is an area of interest for me. The Getty Conservation Institute is a private international research institution which practices and creates the delivery of knowledge. This is from their website. Scientific research, education, training, model field projects, and dissemination of results of research. So academic talk. The Department of Paper Conservation was formed in 1997, and so the conservation staff is responsible for preservation and of its collections, as well as things such as rotating their collection of materials. And this slide shows a sculpture being worked on. Looks like they're 3D scanning it, and there's also some upholstery in here happening as well. When I visit research and or rare book museums, I'm always trying to find my way into the conservation lab so I can see what kind of projects are on the go and what kind of conservation and repair techniques and research equipment that they're employing. I took this off their website. It's a macro XRF scanner, and it's used in this case to uncover hidden type that's beneath the the surface printing. By isolating certain colors, certain layers, certain spectrums, you can come up with this technique. Usually pencil rubbings are done to get an image, and of course, you're not going to uncover certain things. So the new technologies are what's of interest to me. This particular slide shows what kind of materials are present by using this scanner, and it can help to identify the materials used, the process, the order of production, but it can also be used for doing things like verifying fakes as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk about now the Huntington Library, Museum, and Botanical Gardens. Henry Edwards Huntington, he was a railroad and real estate businessman. His wife, Annabella, and him amassed an extensive library of art and botanical collections. And then in 1919, they signed it over in a private trust to become a public institution. And so what's there? There's from the book and document side, there's 11 million library objects, 8 million manuscripts, 450,000 rare books, reference books, prints, ephemera, photographs, and digital files. This is their theater. So what took me to LA and took me to the Huntington on this particular trip was a presentation I made in this auditorium to the American Printing History Association, APHA conference, so a little plug to them. And I presented a research on the history of ancient Chinese playing cards. This is an aerial view, so a very large campus. It's located in San Marino near Pasadena, about 12 miles northeast of the downtown of LA. So the Huntington is located on 207 acres, 120 of them botanical, 50,000 plant varieties, and then 42,000 works of art. This is in addition to the books and manuscripts. So this was the original home of the Huntingtons, which they turned over to the library. There's another view of it. And then one of the more modern buildings, another building there. So some of the botanical gardens, which is one of the main focuses of their collection. Another view. The Japanese gardens, another view, including an evening view. Some of the collections inside. Another room. Another room. And you might notice, you might recognize the painting in the back in the right side, the Blue Boy. And this is one of the famous pieces of art at this museum. Some of the other collections. And then, so the library has these in its collection. So you'll notice a lot of these names, Gutenberg, Thoreau, Dante, and so on. So they have a collection of 400,000 books from hand press era. So one of the biggest collections of a printed record of Great Britain and the US. Some of the displays, they also have a large history of medicine collection, with thousands of artifacts, including 500 15th century printed works. This is the reading room within the 90,000 square foot Munger Research Center. These type of rooms are generally not open to the public. Usually you need to register in advance and have some kind of credentials from academia or at some other place as well. And so most people can usually get some kind of academic credentials by associating with an educational institution. So most of the collections in these type of libraries and museums are not in the public stacks, and need to be called from a vault or some kind of a storage, and then brought up to the reading room. And then there's certain handling of procedures for books that you'll be told about when you access these collections. Of course, some these collections are held in humidity controlled, temperature controlled, in these cases on the left side in clamshell boxes or maybe in glass cages. Also want to keep them away from pests as well, who like to eat the animal glues used in books. Some of the strengths of the Huntington are these areas here. I'm not going to read them all because I'm just looking at the time now and realizing I need to keep going. So some of the illuminated books, some of the botany books from the History of Science collection. So these are called oracle bones, and they're from the late Shang dynasty in China, about 1600 to 1046 BC, so about 3,000 years ago. Oracle bones are pieces of ox or bone or turtle shell, which are used for divination in ancient China. So questions about crops or weather, battles, and ruling family were engraved on these bones. And then, so these bones are of interest to me with my Chinese heritage. I know my last name is Seto, which means Minister of Education or Culture. And during the Zhao dynasty, 1050-250 BC, apparently this minister changed his name from whatever he was. I think he was I forget if it was a Li or a Chan or somebody, changed his name to Seto, which means Minister of Education. So I guess all of us Setos are a descendant of this particular person. This is the so according to the website, the Huntington employs 8 professional book, paper, and painting conservatives that carry out the work of the museum. This is another image of it, restoration work, and their gift shop, which is fun to visit. Okay, so I'm gonna now go to Washington D.C. and the Folger Shakespeare Library. So in 2014, I attended a research conference there. The title of the conference was New Bound, New Scholarship in Early Modern Binding. So this museum was founded by Henry Clay Folger and his wife, Emily. In 1932, they gifted their collection and created this library. So he was the president, chairman of the board of Standard Oil, and Emily, his wife, played an important role in the museum in terms of collections, and in her master's degree did research work about Shakespeare's work as well. So in terms of the architecture, this is designed in 1932 as a modernized classical exterior as English Renaissance interior. And so you'll notice that these museums also have beautiful architecture, most of them. And so this building, when it was built, became the anchor for the nation's cultural mile, and soon became the prototype for buildings all over the country. And so just a block away from the Capitol building. So the conference I attended, two key takeaways for me was that some researchers had discovered that some medieval period bookbinders, when they made the case-bound books, the hardcover books, they would only sew around, say, 3 out of 5 of the reinforcement tapes, therefore saving time, saving money. So think 2 out of 5, 40% less time, 40% less cost, thereby either maybe you could say cheating the customer, or at the same time quoting a lower cost. Of course, this makes the book structure weaker and probably deteriorating prematurely. The other takeaway from the museum was this particular research tool. It's a digital camera on a light dome. It has 260 lights in it, and you can control and program the lights and use one or all of them or a few from the side, and so you can take a look from all angles, and then you can take that image and break it down into 3D image, black and white, color, look at shadow detail, depth of detail. So similar to the scanner that we saw earlier on in a different way, and used for studying rare books. So kind of pretty cool technology. This is the great hall of the museum, and used for different purposes. Here's a display of Shakespearean costumes. The hall can be used for conferences and receptions. And then a function happening in the library / reading room. Beautiful portraits, stained glass windows, inscriptions all over the place. So it's a great place to visit. Maybe not so well known. So of course, the Folger Shakespeare has the world's largest collection of first folios, the book that gave us Shakespeare, in addition to the world's largest collection of Shakespeare-related books, manuscripts, and artifacts. So 260,000 books, 60,000 manuscripts, 90,000 prints, and so on. A wealth of performance history, playbills, films, recordings, stage costumes. The Folger Institute is a dedicated center for collection-focused research and advanced studies in humanity, and provides cross-cultural programs and research fellowships. This is a photo of the photographic lab. Conservation, so the conservation lab that does a bunch of work as well in terms of paper, book repair, and so on. And then the museum has a replica Elizabethan theater. They use for small performances, and larger Shakespeare performances are done at a nearby larger theater. So here's a couple more pictures of the stage and the seating arrangement. So the museum is currently closed until about spring 2023. They're going through a $50 million capital campaign, basically adding a lot of square footage in the basement for displays, interpretation, and so on. This is what it looks like from the outside, well, what it will look like with the renovations. Okay, I'm going to talk about the Library of Congress, which is in Washington, D.C. So this is more printing factory than anything, and my interest lie not just in books, but also in printing. The Library of Congress is actually a number of buildings. It's been through a couple of generations. Of course, the original building was burnt down by the British in the War of 1812, rebuilt, and then burnt down again. And so it's gone through some iterations of its collections. Show some of the outside view of one of the buildings, the Thomas Jefferson building. So the founder, John Adams, it has 171 million items in it, and $668.4 million is their annual operating budget. Admission is free. It's one of the old. This is the oldest of the four buildings of the Congress, built around 1890. So it has, very magnificent rotunda, ceilings, windows, floors, and everything else. And then this is from their website. This is some of the artwork that adorns the ceilings and some of the walls of the buildings. So the building has a number of sculptures and painters from the American Renaissance. So that personify the great men and culminating in the American official culture of the Gilded Age. The central block is broadly comparable to the Palais Garnier in Paris. So the great men they identified were these fellows, some of which you will recognize. So there's monuments to these around the building. I'll take you into the museum. So these are some of the rooms. Some of them are not accessible to the public. So, this is the Library of Congress. So this is where the Congress actually works. This is the reading room. Another view of it. Some of the books available from the reading room. When I see this picture, I think of, a sci-fi movie. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something this is a commercial venture located right in downtown Washington, D.C. I went out for a walk and I found this building here that said on it Book Arts. So I wandered inside and what I discovered was that these fine bookbinders who were trained in Italy were making bespoke presentation bindings for state visits and so on. So their works are in palaces and institutional libraries and private collections around the world. This is some of their work. So they specialize in presentation fine bindings, conservation, restorations, artist bindings, and limited editions. So this particular piece, so the book binding, the box making, and other items are made to commemorate the Pope's visit to the White House during Obama's time. Here's one that was done for Queen Elizabeth II in 2007. Work that was done for Pope Francis' visit in 2015. Obama, I guess that's similar to the other one, Queen Elizabeth. Donald Trump's era. And then they do also restoration work as well. This is their front lobby, you can say gift shop or bookshop. On their website, these are some of the available books that they sell. So I talked to the bookbinder and he told me that their books that they sell range from $30 blank journals to $3,000, $30,000 items. Here I am talking to the chief bookbinder, Stephen Vanilio. Okay, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing in Washington, D.C. is within walking distance from everything else downtown that you might want to see. It's a large printing factory, basically, that prints the American paper money. So it might be of interest to some people who are into books and printing. Here's $1 million in $10 notes. This is the lobby of the museum, part of the print plant, and part of the museum. And so you can watch what's going on in the plant from a second floor balcony, basic glassed-in balcony. They're printing press and sheets and sheets of money. I purchased a sheet of $1 bills, of course, uncut. It's pretty cool. More money, and the packaging line of money. Okay, so something downtown as well. So now I'm going to go up to Rochester, New York, at the Institute of Technology there, and then they have their Carey Graphic Arts collection. So the collection is a library of archive of books, type specimens, manuscripts, documents, artifacts relating to the history of graphic communications. It's located in the Wallace Library at RIT, and has documents as old as the cuneiform tablets and so some of the collections are the Clem Scott Chaucer 1896 illustrated work, and they have so recently they acquired the printing press that printed that edition. So some of the collection, history of writing, art of calligraphy, formats and printing of early books, design of typefaces, and so on. So, so the collection is named after Melbourne Carey Jr. He was a director of the Continental Type Founders Association, past president of American Institute of Graphic Arts, typophile proprietor of private press called the Woolly Whale, and his collection was donated to RIT, which is held in this library. This is the current director, Stephen Galbraith, and he's giving a talk to some visitors. Some of the collections are these. This is these rare book libraries and are reliant on donations of collections from private collectors. This is a replica wooden common press. So it was made by the School of Engineering at RIT in collaboration with the Carey Graphic Arts collection staff. And so this replica is based on a study of the press at the Mackenzie Printery and Newspaper Museum near Niagara Falls. And I'm going to talk about that museum at the end of our presentation. This is a fairly recent acquisition. So this is the Albion hand press from the Clem Scott Press of William Morris. And this is Associate Curator Amelia, who also is the center's printer. Okay, so this is closer to, this is in New York, upper New York State. And now I'm going to go to Japan, a couple places in Japan. Unfortunately, I didn't make it to the Tokyo Museum of Printing, which was my destination. So I got waylaid by my son, who was in tow. And so I did join a couple workshops. And so this printmaking workshop in Asakusa, Tokyo, specializes in sort of experience for the public in making a multi-block print in the style of the hokusai, famous hokusai prints. So the proprietor is David Bull. He's a Canadian who went to Japan to learn how to make prints, and then I guess he's overstayed his visit, and it's 30 years since. So he's got some claim to fame of some famous images that he did, and his shop has many different prints. This is the four-color station for printmaking that I attended. The use of Japanese baron. So we had 6 people in our class, and all our prints looked different just by the amount of pressure that we were able to control on the baron. So the print color and density all varied. Here I am with my finished print. And there's other prints that you could choose from as well. This is a different kind of print, and some of the students have found this image on the internet. And then some of the other images that he's created for some Japanese movies or animations. Okay, so next visit to Japan is the Ozu Paper Museum and the paper making lab, experience lab. So I had actually signed up for the paper making, not realizing there was a museum, and then subsequently showed up there and found out there was a wonderful museum on the top floor. So the Ozu company actually has been at this location since 1653. So what's that, 370 years or something? They've been at this location. I mean, their paper making factories are, remotely located, and then they had a retail store selling paper, or wholesale store selling paper for 370 years, and now it's become their retail paper store, gift shop, and museum. So this is part of the museum. It contains thousands of ancient documents about the history of Ozu. Also shows and displays traditional Japanese paper in the museum. Admission is free, but you need to reserve ahead of time because they will match you up with a guide. So some of the artifacts in the museum. And then this is the Washu paper experience studio that I participated in. You could choose from different molds. And there I am mixing that slurry of mulberry paper pulp. Their retail store, our paper retail store, has a large selection of Oshu papers. And, the gift store has many items dealing with paper and calligraphy. Okay, so coming home to closer to Toronto for me is the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library at the University of Toronto. This is what the building looks like. I don't know how many floors it is, 2, 4, 6, maybe 10 stories or something like that. It's the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library houses the Department of Rare Books, Special Collections, manuscripts, and so on. The building was built in 1973 in honor of Thomas Fisher, who came to Canada in 1821. He operated a grist mill, active in public life, and he was an avid collector of Shakespeare, 20th century authors, etchings of 17th century Bohemian artists, and so he donated this to the university. The library has 740,000 volumes and 4,000 linear meters of manuscript holdings. This is what the library looks like inside. So it has things all the way from the 1789 BC Babylonian cuneiform up to modern Canadian artists and book art writers and book artists' work. Another view. So some of the collections here are these. So they have revolving displays in there, open to the public. The next big one happening on Saturday, September the 10th, is a display of local fine presses. another view of the, so this is part of the reading reading room as well. So these are some of the collections. Some of the other collections are these. Some of the other collections, some of the Darwin collection. And then this is their gift shop. Okay, two more and I'll wrap it up. So Massey College. So the University of Toronto has, I don't know how many, they have 10 or 15 or 20 libraries, specialty libraries, law library, and the religious studies library. And the Massey College, oops, I went backwards, sorry. So the Massey College is a graduate residential college at the University of Toronto, which was built in 1962. So Charles Vincent Massey was a Canadian lawyer, diplomat who served in the as the Governor General. He was the first. Massey's speeches about often praised Canadian cultural diversity, encouraging the arts, and was Massey's noteworthy achievements. His promotion of the National Festival of the Arts began the movement towards eventually led to the founding of the National Arts Centre of Canada. So he compiled, a very large collection through his time, and then gave these to the University of Toronto, so they're at the Massey College. So some of the collections here. So these are pictures. So I was there just a few weeks ago. History of the book, maybe a few months ago by now. Technical material about book arts, history, practice, technique of printing, illustration, typography, and so on. These are some of the collections. So the Rory MacLean being the largest of the collections and the original collection. So collecting works of some of the local small presses, fine presses as well. And then some, this is some teaching aids. So this is a cuneiform teaching aid. Some of the other materials, this is a Chinese wood printing plate, palm leaf book, and then they have a print shop. So they have a full-time college printer whose job is to do work for the university, as well as mentor apprentices. So they have a number of apprentices that work there. So the Robertson Davies, which is a collection, a library within Massey College, partners with the Book History and Print Culture collaborative program at the university, and the apprentice students and junior fellows. And this program is a collaboration between the university's Faculty of Information, iSchool, and other schools like Ancient History. And they offer a master's degree in museum studies and offers bachelor's, master's, and PhDs in information. And then some of the presses. Okay, so the final place that I'm going to talk about is the Mackenzie Printery and Newspaper Museum. This is located in Niagara-on-the-Lake, across the border from Niagara Falls, and across the border from Buffalo, New York. So I'm putting in a plug, shameless plug for this museum. I'm on the board of directors of this little museum of ours. This is, let's see. So in 1950, the former Queenston home of William Lyon Mackenzie became this museum. This was his home at one time, and is now run by the Niagara Parks Commission, and is open to the public during the summer months. This is him. He was a independent newspaper publisher called the Colonial Advocate, and he was known as a political firebrand, hoping to educate citizens and fight what considered a corrupt political system. This is the gem of our museum, the Louis Roy Press. It's an English Common Press, believed to be the oldest and the last remaining wooden press in Canada, built in the 1960s, or not, sorry, the 1760s, out of English oak, and acquired by the Lieutenant Governor John Graves Simcoe to print the Upper Canada's first newspaper, the Upper Canada Gazette, and the American Oracle in Newark, which is now Niagara Falls. In 1793, it's believed there's only 2 such presses working in North America, the other one at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. We have a number of working presses there, including a couple Albions. This is a Westman Baker press. So this is a Canadian-made press, one of the only 2 companies that made presses in Canada. And so this is from around, that company was around from about 1874 to 1922. They also made guillotine cutters as well. And so the Westman Baker press is the press I have at my home in my shed for the work I do. We have Vandercook Press and the Hull Proof Press as well. The Hardware Windmill Press, so fully reconditioned and rebuilt by the Howard Ironworks, who donated it to the museum in 2012. We have a Lionel type machine and a Ludlow machine as well. And we have a Whitlock newspaper press, which we have deployed in a town called Marshville. And we demonstrate this press during the summer fair. So this is run by our Mackenzie Printery and Newspaper Museum. And so that's my presentation, and I hope that was interesting for you. And I'm open to any questions that you have. And feel free to contact me directly at the university if you prefer. Okay, so I'll leave this on just for a few minutes, and then so any questions?
Yeah, Art, thank you so much. I think we all are anxious to get on the road and see some of these places. And I'm sure a number of our people that are listening in have been to these institutions. But I dare say I don't think anybody's been to as many as you have. That is really quite a tour. And we're so lucky at the book club that you joined us during the pandemic, now about a year or so ago, and have been able to really enliven our programming, particularly today. So let me just, you can, if you want to ask any questions or make any comments, share any of your own experiences with some of these places. Just unmute yourself and raise a hand or speak up.
Tim?
Yeah, so I've been to a few of these museums, but it's pretty fascinating that you get the behind the scenes, see restoration, things that are happening, and get a different view than the general public that might go to some of these things. So with that in mind, can you tell us, maybe share something that you found particularly interesting that was being restored, or work that was happening behind the scenes at one of the museums that you visited?
can't say off the top of my head. It's been many, many years. And then, of course, there's the pandemic in between, and my brain is really fuzzy these days about a lot of things. Our university has, unfortunately, it's in, not my the university, but my department is in a state of flux. And I've been on sabbatical for a year. And in this time, I've read in the notes that they've decided to dismantle almost everything book arts related. They're mothballing the letterpresses, and they're shutting down anything to do with history and the art of the book and practical. So I've been this last year, I've been spending a year incubating an idea to launch our own book arts center under the library's umbrella. So they don't know that yet, and I don't think anybody here is from Ryerson, but I'm trying to fix that problem that we have. We're a program of production printing, so we have big Heidelberg presses and big binding machines and that sort of thing. But really, I'm the guy that has the interest in history and letterpress and book arts and so on. So my brain is not there. My brain right now, I'll tell you right now, my brain is in getting my course up and running for September. I'm teaching a course I haven't taught for 5 years. And the person who's been teaching it has let the MIS system, ignored the MIS system and hasn't upgraded it. So I have a lot of technical problems to deal with. And so really all my interest in book history and book arts is sort of going to have to be put on hold for the next year while I get through rebuilding my courses this year. So the challenges of academia, new chairs every 5 years, new deans every 5 years or 10 years, and people coming in and wanting to make their mark and leave a legacy and make changes. So that's the challenge of being, I haven't been on my press for so many years at home because I just, I'm so lost in what's happening at work.
Wow.
So sorry, I can't answer that. Any other questions? I see Susan out there.
Do you have a favorite of the institutions you visited that you talked about today? Did you have a favorite one in particular? Maybe you probably can't reduce it to one, but is there one that stands out in some way?
I like the Folger Shakespeare. I was sort of, quite shocked at, what they were and who they were, having not heard of them before. The access that we had, I was able to go into the restoration lab in the back. So they were very accommodating in that sense. So that's one for sure. I was, I'm shocked at, how large and how the ones are in LA, the Huntington and the Getty. I hadn't known that until actually I did the research, and doing the research. So when I visit, it's always a lesson to bring back for my students, and just showing pictures of nice stuff. You can't create meaningful educational content that you can put on exams for students. So that's why I do that research on the background of the institutions that I visit, and on the founders and the collections and all how that all comes about.
I just ran out to see, try to pick up my copy of a book about the Folgers and how they amassed their collection, which was quite different from Huntington. And Huntington's book I was able to find. He just bought libraries,
Yeah.
and then bought them and then weeded them and then kept what he wanted. The Folgers, they looked at they bought personally every book that's in their collection, or at least they did for as long as they were collecting back in the 20s. And so their interest and their involvement was just so different from Huntington's. And it's interesting to read the two different approaches to these two institutions, both of which have a lot of value. But they competed against each other at times for some of the first folios.
And when I can't remember where I was at, either the Getty or the Huntington, and the story that was told was that New York has all these institutions, or the East has all these institutions, the Morgan, for instance, and that Getty or Huntington, one of them decided, we out in the West, need to up our act, and so that's a bit of that East-West competition, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like Huntington to me.
Yeah.
Time, because Getty his original collection was mostly antiquities, and the new museum, of course, is much more art oriented than it's interesting that the picture you showed of the aerial view, if you at the top of it, you can see the tram that comes up to the Getty. And you're looking at it kind of from the west, or whatever west would be, or from the ocean side. Yeah, it is quite dramatic, and the interiors are really remarkable. When I was there, I didn't see. I know they have an outstanding photography collection and print collection, which is a lot of that comes out of their conservation efforts.
You can't fully appreciate these museums in a few hours or even a day. It really would take quite a bit of research to go through their online databases to find out what's of most interest to you, and then arrange to see them. But if you get stuck looking at architecture and gardens and other art, you'll miss much of the book collections and the manuscript collections, which is kind of what happened.
I'm just wondering about my credentials as the president of the Book Club of Washington, of how I can springboard that into some credentials to get inside the Huntington, for example. But anyway, I'll have to work on that with you, Art. Okay. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for coming, spending this afternoon. And again, particularly thank Art for going back through all of his travels, and it's no doubt his slides and notes from all these visits, which these must be 20 or 30 years of travel. Is that right, Art?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, I'll do an update maybe in 10 years. I have a bucket list of other places to visit that the pandemic didn't allow me to go to. Yeah, good question.
I see a hand up. Lenore?
I highly recommend that you put on your bucket list the Book of Kells at Trinity University in Dublin. Absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
You go to Dublin, not only can you visit where the Book of Kells is housed, but there's the Chester Beatty Museum, or the Chester Beatty Library. It's one of the most thrilling places I've ever been. It's a very small library. It's housed in a relatively small building, but Chester Beatty and his wife were, I think they made their money in mining, again, in the early 20th century. And they began to collect anything that was a manuscript. That was their mandate to dealers all around the country, all around the world. So they have early manuscripts from every part of the world, and including some that are just, generations beyond the life of Christ. And it's a fascinating museum. And Chester Beatty wanted to donate it to Great Britain, and they said, well, we'll have to first calculate how much tax you owe on it. And so he took the whole museum over to Ireland and offered it to Ireland. And he's the first non-native born Irishman, non-native born person to have been made an honorary citizen of Ireland. But I whenever anybody mentions, going to see the Book of Kells, I have to say, within sort of walking distance, you can go and see the Chester Beatty Library as well. If you've never been, it's quite a treat.
Great. I put that on my list.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I've heard that the Book of, I just talked to somebody who'd been to the Book of Kells, and they said that the ancillary exhibit with the book really makes it come to life. You can see so much about the book in the images that they have around it. Is that right, Laura?
So I skipped it. I wanted to concentrate on the book itself.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's fine. Fair enough.
It's a very reverent kind of environment that they've created to
Yes.
display the Book of Kells and to present it. So as you approach the book itself, you are sort of channeled into a darkened, moody, all I can think of is reverent environment to honor the object and the content and the creation of that book. Yeah, so it was an experience.
Okay, anything else? Again, a round of applause for Art.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Okay, until we meet again. Thank you, everyone.
All right, take care. Bye for now.
Bye.